Hey creatives, Karen here, mixed media artist and creative at By the Wolf Moon. This is a completely impromptu video today and not what I had planned as part 2 of the Coming Home to Self series of videos, but I was wide awake in the early hours of this morning and could not get this out of my head, so I go with the flow and speak about what I am guided to speak about. So this is what we're speaking about today. Yesterday in my Facebook memories, a post came up that I had posted 5 years ago now, in 2015, early 2015. And my initial reaction was one of shame and embarrassment. And I'd actually thought about this post a couple of times in the last week or two. And so it was quite pertinent that it came up in my memories yesterday. So the topic is not going to be something that many people will enjoy and some of you may disagree with, but as always I trust that what I say is heard by the people who need to hear it, and those that don't don't have to watch it. So, and I guess that we'll just start off with what the post said and go from there. So I had posted back then something about that on some days swearing and loud music were all there was to get you through the day. And then I made the comment, universe, take me to the hour of death so that in it I may find worth. And that was it. That was the post, basically. And I remember posting this post and what I felt like at the time and how I felt. And this was right in the middle of my deepest, darkest times of my life. And so I wanted to talk a bit about that today, because really the people that I am hoping to help by doing this series of videos are the people that feel like no one understands them. They feel like they're alien in this in the world around them, and they're so different and so unheard and unable to be understood that they just don't feel like they can survive, because that's exactly how I was feeling at the time and still do some days. So after part 1 of this series, after I posted that in the creative activity, I kind of felt like it may have given the impression that this series is all about thinking positively and finding the good in your life and working with that, and that's not exactly how I wanted it to come across. And I think the thing that the image that really made me feel like that was this one of the sheet that I did, which has my incredibly gifted good life on it. And so that was one of the artworks that I created, and I just wanted to make sure that people who really need to hear what I have to say understand that it's not all about positivity and focusing on the good and that sort of thing, because I know back then 5 years ago, if someone had said to me, just write down all the good things you want to feel in your life and let's do a pretty artwork based on all the good things you want to feel, I seriously would have told them to fuck off and not come back. So I just want to make sure that people understand that that's not what this is about, and that's just kind of where I started the series. I kind of had to start somewhere, and I didn't really want to start in with all the doom and gloom and working through all the mess. So that's where I started, but obviously the universe has other ideas, and now it's time for me to address part of the messy side. So there, I feel like I should give a warning that this video will discuss deep depression and suicidal thoughts, and if that's something that's going to trigger you and that you're not interested in hearing, then please stop watching now. So if I go back 5 years to the time when I made that post, I honestly felt like there was, I had no choice in my life, that my life was set for me. It was very hard, and it was never going to be any different. There were no options for me, and nothing I did could change it. And at that time I was living in another country, and I had one close friend that's very dear to me who was nearby, about 20 minutes away I think, and that was it. Everyone else was in New Zealand. And I just felt very isolated and very hopeless and helpless. And I had my best friend here in New Zealand messaging me and calling me at the time and trying to help, and really nothing she said made me feel any better, and in many cases it made me just feel worse. So and that's nothing against her at all. She was doing exactly the right thing, being very supportive and things like that, but I kind of feel like I wanted to explain what I was thinking then, in the hopes of giving other people who are trying to support people with mental health issues and who are going through deep depression some ideas on what maybe they could say that might be helpful. And it won't be the same for everyone, because everyone is different, and everyone's you know, depression is different, and their thoughts and feelings are different, and the way they got to that place in their life is always different. So but if any of this resonates with you, then I feel like I have to say it, and so that's what I'm doing. So at that time I had both my kids in school. My daughter was really struggling with school. She is autistic, but we hadn't had her diagnosed then. She was suffering with learning difficulties and just could not cope with being at school. And so I spent a lot of my time there, and a lot of time trying to help her and support her as best I could, while not really having a clue what I was doing. I wasn't working because I needed to be there for her. I needed to be there at the drop of a hat if the school phoned me. So I was on the benefit and trying to survive in a country away from the people I was most familiar with. And I had recently separated from my husband, and I also have multiple sclerosis. So, and at that time I was pretty stressed out and sick. So life wasn't easy. Life wasn't easy, and a lot of my thoughts at the time were very negative. Now, that post that I made back then, I think it got 2 comments, and 4 people acknowledged that they'd seen it, as opposed to positive posts that I might post these days. might get, 20 or 30 or 40 people liking it, or and that's normal. I think it's normal for people to avoid the messy and the situations that they don't know how to change, and I do exactly the same thing. If I see posts like that from my friends on Facebook, which I rarely do, thank goodness, but if I did, I would probably tend to scroll past it and ignore it. And at that time, I didn't want people saying to me, what can I do, how can I help you, or what do you need, or blah blah blah, because I really didn't know. I didn't know what I needed. I didn't know how anyone else could help me. I didn't know how anyone could make it better, and as far as I was concerned, there was nothing that could be done to change my life at that time. And it felt really, really awful, and I truly wanted to be at the end of my life and knowing that it would all be over very soon, so that I just didn't have to feel those things anymore. And I would literally visualize what it would feel like to feel the life draining out of me, and how the release that would give me. Now, because we were in a different country, and it was me and the kids didn't really have anyone there, that's what kept me here, that's what kept me with them. But it didn't stop me thinking every single day how much I didn't want to be on this planet anymore, and what I could do to get out of it, to get out of this life, out of this contract that I had with the universe to live a life. I didn't want it. And people saying to me, but you've got this, and there are good things in your life, and you need to focus on those, and blah blah blah, really made it worse, because I knew that, and the more I knew that, the worse it made me feel that I wasn't grateful and appreciative of those things. And so it was a vicious circle of wanting to enjoy life and wanting to appreciate and be grateful for the things that I knew were good in my life, and not being able to, and then feeling guilty and ashamed that I wasn't able to be grateful. That just started a whole cascade of other feelings. And so in the nighttime, in the early hours of this morning, when I woke up and I was thinking about this, and knew that I had to do a video about it today and speak about it, I was thinking to myself, well, what did I want at that time? What did I need at that time from someone? What did I need someone to say to me? That might have changed the trajectory of my thinking. And all I could come up with was, I just wanted acknowledgement. I think I wanted acknowledgement that my life had been difficult, that it hadn't been easy, that it's not easy living with multiple sclerosis and trying to keep on top of your health, as well as raising an autistic child who needs constant attention, and raising another child who doesn't need constant attention but so desperately also needs love and care, of course. And then going through a separation and having your whole life change. So we had gone from being quite wealthy, homeowners and stuff, and prior to separating, and then I was now had less money coming in than needed to go out. So not even enough to pay bills, or struggling to buy groceries and things like that. And that was really hard. And there was no acknowledgement from anyone, from friends or family, at the difficulties that I had faced, and that, you know, it was valid for me to feel some of the feelings that I was feeling. And I think that is what I really needed to hear, that it was okay for me to feel some of those feelings, and I was perfectly valid, and that yes, it was really hard what I had to go through. And you know, rather than the staying positive and, you know, thinking of all the positive things and stuff like that, I think I really just needed some acknowledgement of the difficulties that I had and was having, because I didn't have, even living in New Zealand, I don't have the family support of, you know, family that come around and look after the kids, or, you know, will spend the morning helping out with housework and stuff like that. I don't have that sort of a family. Everything I do is, but also I'm not that sort of a person. I wouldn't enjoy that. I'm very independent and very much have to do things by myself. So my kids don't get looked after by other people. When I say it's me looking after Emily 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, it is actually me. You know, I don't get to ship her off to someone else's house for a couple of hours or that sort of thing. And it gets hard, and I have beautiful friends. I have really wonderful friends and really wonderful support, so I don't want it to sound like I don't, but I really just wanted to kind of express, you know, some things that maybe could have been, or a different route to take, rather than the looking at the positive and grateful side, you know, to try and help someone who's really suffering with depression. What else do I want to say? I think that it's so important to allow yourself to feel. It's so important not to be afraid to speak about these feelings, and we don't. You know, mental health has had some spotlight on it in the last little while, but still it's not enough just to post something on Facebook that says, call me if you're not, you know, I'll always be here for you. Because I know in 2015 there is no way in hell, when I was sitting in the bathroom floor wishing I was not there anymore, there's no way I would have picked up the phone and called anyone to talk about it. That's the last thing I would have done. And if someone and if people had called me at that time, I just wouldn't have answered, or I wouldn't have let on that anything was wrong. So it's not enough to say, you know, I'm here for you, you can talk to me, because people that are really depressed just won't. And look, I'm generalizing here, and it's not the same for everyone. Please understand that this is just how it was for me. But what is important is that we acknowledge that people have feelings that don't feel good, and we speak about them, and we don't make people feel ashamed, or we encourage people not to feel ashamed, because I don't think anyone wants to shame people, really. But it's important that we encourage people to talk about the difficulties that they're having and why their life feels difficult, even though someone else could be living the same life and have the same difficulties and be totally happy and coping. And, you know, that kind of thing also adds to the vicious cycle. So now what I really want to do is, I think in the next few days I'll do an art piece that is really feeling into those feelings again that have come up, and especially the feeling of shame when I saw that post come up yesterday. And I felt ashamed that I had put that out there in Facebook land for all my friends and family to see that, you know, I basically wished I was dead, and that no one had really reacted to it or taken it seriously. Maybe that's part of where the shame comes from as well, I'm not sure. I think it's easy for me to sit here in hindsight and suggest things when my life isn't like that anymore and I'm in a much better headspace. But I know at the time my headspace was one that I couldn't think clearly and I didn't know what I wanted. I just knew that life felt really, really, really bad and I had to get out of it somehow. So anyway, I thank God that I am not there anymore, but I appreciate that I needed to go through that time in my life in order to be able to get to where I am going today, and in order to be able to help the people that I need to help today. So it was a really important time in my life, and I am grateful that I had got to experience it, regardless of how extremely hard and difficult it was. Depression for me has been pretty much lifelong, and a lot of it comes from feeling overwhelmed. The first time I remember feeling completely overwhelmed and unable to cope was when I was sitting 7th form exams at high school, so that's year 13 these days, and I was working part-time. I had to study for exams and I don't know what else to do, and I just felt so completely overwhelmed by the pressure to accomplish all of these things that needed to be accomplished, that I couldn't cope, but somehow I did. And then the first time I remember wanting or thinking to myself that I wanted to die, I was 18, and I remember it vividly. It was a beautiful day and I was driving home to my parents' house or my mother's house, and I was driving along the road at 18 and I thought I could just drive off into that tree. I could just drive off the road into that tree and I wouldn't have to be here anymore. And I thought about that for, you know, a few more minutes as I was driving up the road, and then said to myself, well, that's just, you know, nah, you can't do that, and carried on. And that was the first time I ever thought about, you know, ending it all. And then there have been many, 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 many times since then. But thankfully, in the last year or two, that all seems to have, I finally seem to have been able to get on top of all of that, and I'm actually really enjoying life now. And Emily, my daughter, has been huge in helping me appreciate, you know, how strong and capable I am and how necessary I am in this world. So I'm always incredibly grateful to her and for the lessons that she's taught me and is continuing to teach me. So I really don't know if any of that is helpful or not. I don't even know if that's what I was meant to talk about today, but I did want to acknowledge and make sure that anyone who is following the Coming Home to Self series knows that it's not all about creating rainbows and lollipops and sunshine. You know, we are going to be dealing with the depths, you know, of shadow and darkness and things like that, and it will come up, but I just need the time to get there. So I think that's all I needed to say, I guess. So I will watch this back and hopefully share it with you. If you would like to follow more of my art and stuff like that, you can follow me on Facebook at By the Wolf Moon or Instagram at By the Wolf Moon. And I will continue with this series of videos because I feel like it is important to say stuff like this, which very rarely actually gets talked about, and it really needs to become normal. We really need to acknowledge that it is normal for people to have feelings that aren't nice, and it is normal for people to feel like they can't cope and that they don't know how to change their life. And I feel like now's the time that the world is becoming a much more open and accepting place, and we really need to acknowledge that everyone here is valuable and everyone here has worth, even if they can't see it right now, and it's our job to try and help them figure it out. So that's it. Enjoy your day. See you next time.